Hello. Today I wanted to give you a tutorial on how I go about drawing hair. But it's important to remember that with all subjects, there's no one right way to draw anything. And so it's really important that trial and error and being mindful about what has been effective in the past and being mindful about what variables you can control with your material, that if you can think about all those things, then I believe you can draw anything and try to innovate to handle different subjects that you've never tried before. So what I'm doing here first with the hair, you see I started with the line work already and blocked it in. And the thing about hair is it's made up of individual strands, but the individual strands come together to make a larger mass, and that larger mass can have a specific light situation that you should pay attention to. I always actually look for highlight, shadow, and midtone in the hair of my subjects, because then I know that it'll be easy to translate into a drawing or painting. So here with this reference that I found online, you can see the obvious highlight, you can see the obvious dark shadows where it pushes back in space and away from the light, and this is sort of the midtone. And so I'm going to start this drawing by blocking in within my line work where the different values are. And so I'm using a lot of pressure here because this is one of my darkest areas. And over here, under the ear, is one of the darkest areas as well. And when you're going for realism, building up a lot of material is one of your best strategies, because you can be layering both the more compressed charcoal and the white Conti to build up and create very specific textures. So this is good sort of blocking in for now. I'm going to blend a little bit and work it into the page somewhat, because erasing can be quite effective to suggest the individual strands that make up the mass of hair. So that's what I will be trying next, is sort of texturizing. And this is useful for many different subjects to kind of block in generally the highlight, midtone, and shadow that you're seeing, and then attempt to add texture. So now that things are roughly locked in, I can go in with my eraser and can start to try to cultivate some texture and value difference. So I've ripped this eraser so it's got a bit of a sharp edge. And right now I am hitting the drawing to stand in for the highlights of the hair. And then here you can see at the part, there's bright highlight actually on that segment. Along the contour of the hair, there's a bit of highlight. The shape is wrong, so I'll adjust that. And then I'm going to suggest a little bit of wispy texture at the bottom for what her hair is doing. It's kind of curling a little bit at the bottom. So remember the direction of not only where you apply charcoal, but also the direction of where you choose to erase is important. So I'm trying to support the form with that directionality. So then I can go in with my compressed, and I'm going to start to go in for some of the darker moments. And for realism, sometimes you really do need to build up quite a bit of material. So I'm putting a little more material than I need to down here so that I can erase out. There's more hair down here than I have material to suggest it. So now once there's a little more material, I can use my eraser to start to carve out not only texture but also form. So you can see here the hair is coming towards the viewer, and so I'm actually curving those strokes to try to communicate that. So you want to carefully blend around some of the texture that you make so that way it's not too pronounced. Like up here, I can blend it into this shadow, and so then it looks like the strands are coming out more. And then I made the mental note, it's lightest here. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, suggest some of the wispy texture down at the bottom. Clean up. Okay. Next I'm going to see if white Conti is useful here, because a lot of art making is just trial and error and taking risks. And so here I'm going to see if the white Conti can help, and it is working to suggest the highlight that is so bright up there. So I'm going to heavily restrict where the white Conti goes, so that way it's impactful and specifically standing in for the brightest points of light. And here where the hair is coming towards the viewer, it can be useful to use the white Conti to build up a little bit of a denser material so it feels a little more physical coming forward. And leaving some of the marks unblended can help suggest a bit of texture. I really like using the white Conti to help build up density of the drawing material. So the last thing I'm going to do is try to adjust some of my values, because value difference can really help with the space. So I'm going to try to go in with my darkest darks, really push those so that way they sit back in space. There's a bit of reflected light and a patch of hair here. And then there's a contour that's a little off over here. This is also something important to remember, that no matter how far you get in the drawing, never take it for granted that something has been drawn accurately. I kind of missed this wispy bang piece. So I'm going to use the white Conti. I'll build this up a little bit. And if you get too much material, you can see that there's a little too much material up here. It stops feeling like hair. You can just erase up to kind of reclaim the textures that are possible with a little bit less material. So I'm erasing up for this mid-tone instead of letting the white Conti stand in for it. So you have to understand the space, the form of the hair to draw it properly. So that's what I'm trying to correct for over here, that I just wasn't communicating the right space. And that's kind of the trick of hair, is how do you show the form of it, but also that it is made up of those strands. Charcoal pencils can be quite effective as well. So that way you can add linear marks to suggest the hair. But I find that even with the charcoal squares, you can get a nice sharp point enough to do hair strands. So that is a little bit of demonstration to show you how I would start to draw hair.